The Channel Mom Show, celebrating you with Jenny Dean Schmidt.
If you're a busy mom, get someone else to send your personalized cards for much less than a store-bought card and stamp. It's that easy. Just click on Send Out Cards.
We are here with Nicole Odell, who deals with hot button issues. She's written manuals on it for parents and for teens. She has her own radio show. We're going to jump right into it. Shelly's going to have a question for you too, Nicole. Welcome back to the Channel Mom Show.
Thank you.
Sorry you're sick today. Let me just say this. We're talking about sex, and we're talking about how do you talk to your kid about it? How do you lay down laws? I mean, I have a ton of people in my life who put their kids on the pill when they're, their daughters on the pill when they're 14, 15. They just say, it's a foregone conclusion. They're going to have sex in high school. Don't be naive, Jenny, so on and so forth. So how do you talk to your child about sex? And do you think we've got this epidemic of trying to be your kid's best friend and just trying to understand that they're going to do what they're going to do? Or do you think that there's really an actual way to show your kid that having sex, at random with whomever is going to lead to disease, is going to lead to heartbreak, is going to lead to potentially feeling like they want to have an abortion and all kinds of tragedy there? How do you do it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's difficult, and it's different with each child. That's why the way the Hot Buttons books work, we call them strategic scenarios. They're in the book, 14 or 15 each issue, and it gives the parents the opportunity. They tell their child a fictional story that's written there in the book, and they put them right in the middle of that tough hot button peer pressure situation, like as it might pertain to sex. Mm-hmm. And then it gives 4 choices for what that teenager might do in response to those feelings or that pressure or that choice she has to make at that time, or he. And the teenager, preteen, makes that choice, and then the discussion guide continues from there and walks the parent through taking that conversation farther. And the reason that this is effective is, first of all, because it's fictional, but it feels like real life, the child lets down the guard and opens up and says, yeah, I could really see how I might have fallen for that, or I can really see how I might have slipped there, and that would have been a situation I would have known what to do. Also, it prepares them because they are real-life situations that actually do come up for most of us, most of our teenagers.
Yeah.
So when it does happen, they can think back and say, okay, I'm actually literally prepared for this exact situation.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to make a decision in the heat of the moment, in the face of peer pressure, which is so tough. It's like we throw our kids out there and we want them to figure it out just as it's happening, and they're just not equipped to do that.
No, and we work with the folks at the Center for Relationship Education, and they actually do have an abstinence program, and people roll their eyes at that. I mean, I can't tell you how many parents I've talked to and said that don't be unrealistic, it's going to happen, and we all did it, and so on and so forth. But there is research that suggests that a parent is willing to address sex issues with their child and suggest to them that they wait, that the percentage of those kids that have been approached by their parents, the percentage of those children is far higher for waiting than those whose parents never approached them at all. So they actually said, believe it or not, you don't think you're a role model. You think you're uncool to your kid if you're talking about this and actually suggesting that they abstain. But in fact, the research shows that if you will talk to your child about that, they'll listen to you and they're much more likely to abstain. So it's just a matter of having the conversation,
Yeah, and tackling it by talking about STDs and abortions and premarital or unmarried pregnancy and things like that. That's all true and valid, and our kids need to hear that. But I don't think that's going to be what makes their decision for them, because teenagers have this mindset of, that'll never happen to me.
Okay, good. So, I like it. So keep going. What do we do instead? Instead of you're going to get an STD, or you might have to, get to the point where you think you want to have an abortion, which is horrible. And you know what I mean? I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, 100% of the time, a teenager is involved in a premarital sexual relationship. 100% of the time, their heart, their minds, their future, their marriage is affected.
Yeah.
It's chipped away.
Yeah.
It's mixed. And presenting that picture of God's best for them and making that the goal instead of what they shouldn't do or what's so wrong or what's so bad. And, and they in those years, they start to have those debates with themselves over what's really wrong and is mom out of touch? Does dad really get it? But when we put it in a way, coming from God's word, coming from reality, logical choices about their future, and it's 100% of the time, not just a chance you might get this. It makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. And you're putting it in the positive. Like, I want you to picture your future wife. How are you going to feel if she's slept around with 30 people? I mean, I had friends that did that in college, 40, 50 people. I'm not exaggerating. I know that's kind of crazy for people to have to listen to at 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, but it's true. And I know that there was hurt after that, and they brought that into the marriage. And so instead you're saying positively, think about your future wife. What do you want to give her? Think about your future husband. What do you want to give them? You know?
Yeah, and it's not just a one-time decision. This has to be an ongoing lifestyle conversation that goes on a regular basis.
Yes.
Every time a teenager goes out on a date, reinforcing those choices and talking about why. And also, I mentioned earlier, talking about temptation. What is it going to feel like in the heat of the moment when that pressure hits?
Yeah.
Letting them understand what their body, what the natural response of the human body is and why God designed it that way. And this is what it is. So if they can identify it and put a name on it, it's a lot easier to address.
Okay.
And also why their enemy is against this.
Yeah.
You know, why he's out to get them to slip on this. And I'm the kind of person, if I know someone's trying to get me to fall or to do so, I get angry and I fight back.
Shelley has a very quick question for you. And can you put this also in the context of drugs, Shelley? Because we want to bring that in, if she made any mistakes with that, drugs and alcohol.
Yeah, so the question is, how far do you go with your personal mistakes in talking to your kids?
Like if you tried drugs and alcohol, if you had a ton of premarital sex with a lot of different people, did you admit it to your own kids, and should we admit it to our own kids?
Absolutely. And I'm not going to sit down with a spreadsheet and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, you know.
Yeah.
But I absolutely did share all of my, all of the choices I have made, and the reasons why, to show that there's not always a blame attached, and it's not always, you know, a horrible person doing a horrible thing, that sin and bad choices get their claws in you, and you know, especially a teenager, that slippery slope is really, really difficult to climb back up.
Yeah.
And you can't show that unless you can reveal it, you know, unless you can really show it at work. But I'm going to caution parents, when you start to share your own experiences, be sure your teenager, your preteen, is ready and wants to hear it. A lot of times they'll feel like you just want to turn everything around to be about you.
Oh.
Be careful and make sure it's in the right conversation, not when they just got caught doing something. Well, when I was your age, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But in a separate conversation, intentional, to say, hey, can I share some things with you from my background, having not attached to any other conversation you're having. Just be intentional about that.
Yeah, I love it. Nicole, how do people get a hold of you? Because you've got fabulous advice.
Go to hotbuttonsite.com, hotbuttonsite.com. It's also NicoleOdell.com. You can find it there. All the social media and Facebook and Twitter and all that is there too. And just so you know, at that hotbuttonsite.com, you can, I put up free hot button scenarios like I was talking about earlier. You can just start today. You can just try one out and see if you like how it works and have the conversations right now. You don't have to buy a book to do that, but you can buy them on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all those places.
Good to know. And I've liked you on Facebook, so people can find you on facebook.com/ChannelMom too. So thanks so much for being with us, Nicole. Take care. Get better.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.